A black freshman walks into his first Ivy League calculus class. The professor freezes, then erases his name from the roster. Minutes later, that same student solves a graduate-level equation. In 60 seconds, no notes. The class gasps. The professor doesn't clap. He calls for an investigation. But by next week, his paper vanishes. His grades are flagged, and a note appears on his door. Go back where you belong. What happens next will shake the nation. Before we deep dive into this interesting story, subscribe to our channel, and tell us where are you watching from. Share in the comments below. The first day of Calculus 4 at Harwick University looked like a brochure photo. Rows of wide-eyed students with crisp folders and $200 textbooks, a chalkboard still clean from summer, and the soft clatter of MacBooks opening like a synchronized ritual. The professor wasn't there yet, but the buzz had already begun. Then the door creaked open, and silence swept the room like a weather front. Jaleel Carter stepped inside quietly, clutching a beat-up leather satchel and wearing the same gray hoodie he'd traveled in on the bus from Southside Chicago to Cambridge. His eyes scanned the amphitheater layout, empty seats stretching upward in a crescent. He didn't hesitate. He moved down the stairs with calm, deliberate steps, then slid into a front-row seat, dead center, notebook out, 10 uncapped, eyes forward. Whispers started. First like coughs, then words. Who is he? That's the kid who aced the placement test. In 1 hour flat. The whole thing. No way. Yeah. Someone said he got a perfect score. Jaleel heard them. He always did, but he'd taught himself early to listen without reacting. Every comment was just a page turning. He kept his eyes on the board. That's where the real conversation would happen. Behind him, a trio of white students shared glances. One snorted. Another leaned back, muttering something about DEI freebies. A girl to his left shifted uncomfortably, slowly pulling her bag a little closer. The door slammed open. The whispers stopped. Dr. Richard Tomlin entered with a click of leather shoes and authority in his stride. Salt and pepper hair, sharply pressed slacks, and a reputation for failing half his class. Students said he didn't curve. He didn't joke. He didn't care. He dropped his briefcase on the table, opened it, pulled out a stick of chalk like a surgeon unsheathing a scalpel, and turned toward the room. His eyes swept the lecture hall like a general inspecting a battlefield. Then they landed on Jaleel. He paused. Are you lost? It wasn't a joke. There was no smirk, no glint of sarcasm. It was an honest question, wrapped in a condescending bow. The room froze. Jaleel turned his head slowly, meeting the professor's gaze. His voice, when it came, was low, but clear. No, sir. I'm in the right place. The professor blinked, as if the response defied logic. He tilted his head. Name, Jaleel Carter. There was no recognition in Dr. Tomlin's eyes, or maybe just none he wanted to admit. He made a small noise in his throat, turned his back and began writing on the board. Jaleel felt the looks again. The girl beside him had already moved 2 seats over. It didn't matter. He wasn't here to be liked. The chalk scratched out symbols and lines like a punishment. The symbols danced in complexity, multivariable limits, partial derivatives, integrals folding into vector fields, a problem more suited for a PhD candidate than a freshman. The class watched in silence. Then the professor turned around, clapping his hands once. Well, he said flatly, it seems Mr. Carter is confident he's in the right room. So let's see just how right he is. He gestured to the problem. Since you're so certain, solve this. Gasps rippled through the room. Jaleel didn't flinch. He stood, slid his notebook back into his bag, and walked to the board. It wasn't about proving anything. He had already proved it to himself years ago. In a cramped apartment bedroom with a broken fan and water stains on the ceiling, working through used textbooks with missing pages. Calculus wasn't a barrier. It was a language he'd already mastered. He picked up the chalk, took a breath, and got to work. No flourish. No dramatic pause. Just precision. He simplified the outer derivative, nested the variables cleanly, used polar substitution where necessary, and annotated each step. The work was tight, neat, methodical, a mathematician's handwriting. Within 60 seconds, he was done. He underlined the answer and stepped back. The room was dead silent. Dr. Tomlin walked up, slowly, staring at the board like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. His mouth tightened. That was quick, he muttered. One student clapped. Another joined. A few more followed, but it wasn't an applause of celebration, it was uncomfortable. Confused, the professor didn't clap. Instead, he turned back to the class, voice clipped and dry. Well, that doesn't prove anything. Rote memorization can be misleading. Jalil returned to his seat without a word. Behind him, someone whispered, Freak. Another voice. No way he did that. Legit. No way. The class moved on, but the tone had shifted, not because of the math, but because of who had solved it. Jalil wasn't just the only black student in the room. He was the smartest, and that fact sat uncomfortably on every desk. He spent the rest of the lecture taking quiet notes, never looking up. When the bell rang, he waited until the room had mostly cleared. As he stepped out into the hallway, someone shoulder-checked him hard. His bag hit the wall, books spilling. He bent down, calmly picked them up, eyes still steady. He had grown up in places where people used fists, threats, and worse. This was different. This was chess, and every move was designed to check his presence. He'd expected challenges. He hadn't expected open contempt. That evening, walking across the quad, Jalil passed clusters of students, smiling, laughing, skateboarding. Between dorms, his phone buzzed. A text from his mother. You did it. Proud of you. Don't let anyone make you feel small. Love, Mom. He paused, took a breath, then saw it pinned to the bulletin board outside the math hall. A new flyer. Math League tryouts, open to all honors calc students, come prove yourself. In bold letters underneath. Hosted by Dr. R. Tomlin. Jalil stepped closer, reading the fine print. There was a sample problem printed on the bottom. Another nearly impossible equation. The words next to it chilled him. Real mathematicians show up. Dr. Tomlin coldly draws a sprawling calculus problem on the board. Since you're so confident, solve this. The air in the lecture hall thickened as Dr. Richard Tomlin stepped aside, revealing the monstrous equation sprawling across the chalkboard. Symbols nested inside symbols, partial derivatives looping into integrals, a cruel labyrinth of variables that could choke even a doctoral student. He dropped the chalk with a faint click and folded his arms. Well, Mr. Carter, he said, his tone casual but carrying a sharp undertone. Let's see what you're made of. A few students snickered under their breath. The laughter wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. It was the kind that carried weight, the smug kind that assumed a punchline was coming. And that punchline, they believed, was standing right there at the front of the room. Jalil stepped toward the board, feeling the heat of 50 pairs of eyes on him. He could hear the soft buzz of phones unlocking, screens angled discreetly toward him. A few students had already begun recording. After all, this wasn't an ordinary problem, and Jalil wasn't an ordinary student. He stood there for a moment, silent. His hand hovered over the chalk. Dr. Tomlin smirked faintly. Take your time, he said. No pressure. That single phrase carried more venom than volume. The professor turned to his desk, flipping open his notes with exaggerated indifference, as if already preparing for the inevitable failure. The class chuckled. Jalil didn't move. He was reading, not the symbols, but the intention behind them. The professor had structured the equation with precision. Each segment a trap, each transformation designed to waste time. He could almost hear the rhythm of Dr. Tomlin's mind, the way someone with power disguised cruelty as pedagogy. It wasn't about mathematics. It was about message. He finally picked up the chalk. A faint squeak filled the room as he began writing. At first the audience didn't react, but then the tempo of his movement changed. His wrist worked in clean arcs, his notations quick but deliberate. He wasn't guessing. He wasn't hesitating. The symbols unfolded like he was reading a familiar sentence. One student whispered, "Wait, he's not," but he was. He simplified the triple integral, separated the constants, transformed the gradient into polar coordinates, then switched to vector notation, with one smooth stroke. His process was elegant, not just correct, but effortless. He didn't need to pause to think. His brain worked in soundless calculation, like a machine that had seen this pattern 100 times before. Dr. Tomlin's head lifted from his notes. Within 60 seconds, Jalil set down the chalk. He stepped aside. The board, once chaotic, now looked like an open door, symmetrical, balanced, solved. No flourish, no grin, just quiet finality. The silence afterward was almost unbearable. You could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. Then someone coughed. Another shifted in their seat. Phones lowered. The problem was correct, completely correct. A boy in the second row whispered. He actually did it. Another student, a blonde girl near the back, muttered. He solved that? Dr. Tomlin approached the board slowly. His shoes clicked on the tile. His eyes scanned the solution line by line, then back again. He looked for a flaw, any excuse to dismiss it. There wasn't one. The class watched him. A muscle in his jaw twitched. Well, he said finally, tone carefully measured. That's impressive. But the words sounded forced, squeezed out of him like something bitter. Jalil nodded once, and returned to his seat. The professor continued. Of course, he added, chalk tapping against the desk. Speed is an accuracy. Perhaps he's practiced this particular problem before. The implication was sharp enough to draw blood. Laughter rippled again through the room. Tentative at first, then bolder. Jalil sat still, eyes forward, pen tapping silently against his notebook. He knew that laugh. It wasn't amusement. It was armor. It said, we can't admit what we just saw, so we'll make it funny instead. The rest of the lecture moved on in uneasy rhythm. Dr. Tomlin lectured on multidimensional functions, but his tone had changed. His sentences carried an undercurrent, an invisible footnote in every example. If you truly understand the work, he said pointedly, you don't need to rely on memorization. If you've earned your place in advanced calculus, you should be able to explain your reasoning. Genius isn't imitation, it's comprehension. Every phrase was a jab dressed as pedagogy. Jalil kept writing. His notes were immaculate, line after line of crisp formulae, annotations, references. But something in him was shifting, a quiet recognition that this moment wasn't an anomaly. It was a test of endurance disguised as education. When the class ended, students began filing out, whispering behind cupped hands. I don't care what he says. That was wild. Probably luck. No one does that in 60 seconds. As Jalil zipped up his bag, he noticed the same trio of white students from before waiting near the door. They weren't whispering now. They were staring. The tallest one smirked. Hey Einstein, he said, voice dripping mock admiration. What's the trick? Flashcards? Or just affirmative action magic? His friends chuckled. Jalil met his eyes but didn't answer. He had learned that silence often spoke louder than defense. He adjusted his satchel and walked past them. Didn't think math had a quota, one muttered as he left. The hallway outside was brighter, but colder. He felt eyes following him even there. A few students passed, smiling awkwardly, sympathetic, but distant. No one wanted to get caught on the wrong side of campus politics. He walked toward the quad, air biting at his face. His mind replayed the moment, not the equation, but the professor's face, that flicker of disbelief, the almost imperceptible frown. Dr. Tomlin hadn't expected brilliance. He'd expected failure, and now he was offended by its absence. Later that evening, in his dorm room, Jalil sat at his desk surrounded by silence. His roommate was gone, a lacrosse player who barely spoke to him beyond the polite small talk of shared space. On his laptop screen, he rewatched the recording someone had uploaded to the campus group chat, the entire class captured in shaky vertical format. The caption read, Black kid in Calc 4 owns the professor. Comments flooded the feed. No way that was real. Staged. How'd he do that so fast? That's the diversity hire genius. Jalil's stomach twisted. It wasn't praise, it was spectacle. They weren't celebrating his mind. They were gawking at the anomaly. A black boy in a hoodie who wasn't supposed to outthink the system. He closed the laptop, leaned back, and stared at the ceiling. For a fleeting second, he wished he'd failed, just to disappear into the anonymity that came with mediocrity. But that wasn't who he was. He hadn't fought through nights of flickering streetlights and sirens outside his window just to shrink now. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You made him look bad. Not smart. Bad move. No name. No context. Just warning disguised as advice. He didn't reply. Instead, he opened his notebook again. Page after page of work stared back at him. Proofs, solutions, theories. They were his armor. His proof that he belonged. A soft knock broke the silence. When he opened the door, a girl stood there, the same one who'd moved seats that morning. She looked nervous, holding a stack of papers against her chest. I just wanted to say, she stammered, that was incredible. I've never seen anyone do that before. Her voice was sincere, eyes wide. Jalil nodded slightly. Thanks, he said quietly. She hesitated, glancing down the hall. You should be careful, she whispered. Tomlin doesn't like being shown up. Then she left. He stood in the doorway for a moment, the echo of her words hanging in the still air. When he turned back to his desk, the room felt different, heavier somehow. On the corner of his notebook, a faint smear of chalk dust still clung to his hand, proof of what he'd done, proof of what had just begun. Because in that 1-minute act of brilliance, Jalil hadn't just solved a problem. He'd created one. And this time, the variables were people. Dr. Tomlin's face doesn't show admiration. It shows something darker. For the next few days, the video of Jalil solving the impossible calculus problem became digital wildfire. The clip bounced from group chats to Reddit threads, then found its way to TikTok and Instagram reels. Comments split like a fault line, admiration on one side, quiet resentment on the other. By the end of the week, everyone on campus seemed to know his name, but not the way he wanted. Yo, you're that math prodigy, right? Man, you embarrassed, Dr. Tomlin. That was crazy. Hey, can you check my homework though? It wasn't respect, it was novelty. He was the story of the week. The black genius people whispered about between classes. He could feel their eyes following him down hallways, half in awe, half in judgment. What they didn't see was the weight pressing beneath that attention, the way it stripped his humanity and turned him into a symbol. Every glance carried the question he could never stop hearing in his head. Do they see me, or just what I represent? By Thursday morning, the noise had spread beyond the student body. He was sitting in the back of a smaller study hall, headphones on, reviewing notes for a test when his phone vibrated. The notification made his stomach tighten. Email from Dr. Richard Tomlin. Subject: academic inquiry. Please see me immediately. He read it twice. There was no explanation, no greeting, just that command. Jalil packed his notebook, heart steady but heavy, and walked across the quad toward the mathematics building. The autumn air was sharp, sunlight glancing off the ivy-coated walls. He tried to calm the unease building in his chest, telling himself it was routine, maybe a follow-up, maybe even acknowledgement, but deep down he knew better. When he entered Dr. Tomlin's office, the air felt thick. Books lined the shelves in perfect symmetry. Certificates framed in gold leaf covered the wall. Decades of authority. Behind the desk, Dr. Tomlin didn't look up immediately. He let Jalil stand there, waiting, like an uninvited guest. Finally, he spoke. Sit down, Jalil did. I've reviewed your recent performance, Tomlin began. Voice calm, clinical. And I must admit it's intriguing. There was no smile, no hint of warmth. Just calculation. Your test scores, your placement, your in-class demonstration, all very exceptional, exceptionally high. Jalil nodded once, unsure where this was going. Thank you, sir. That's not what I said. Tomlin's gaze lifted now, sharp and dissecting. I said exceptional, as in unusual, not commendable. Jalil felt something in his chest tighten. Tomlin continued. I've been teaching this course for 22 years. I've seen thousands of students. None, and I mean none, have ever solved that equation with such speed. He leaned back, studying Jalil like an unsolved problem himself. So naturally, I have questions. What kind of questions? About your background, your preparation, your prior coursework. Who taught you calculus at that level? Myself, Jalil replied quietly. Tomlin raised an eyebrow. Yourself? Yes, sir. I studied independently in high school. I used online lectures, old textbooks, problem sets from MIT OpenCourseWare. The professor nodded slowly, lips pressed thin. I see. He stood, crossed to a filing cabinet, and retrieved a folder. Well, in that case, I'd like to verify a few things. Please provide your high school transcripts and standardized test reports. We just need to confirm everything lines up properly. Jalil blinked. Confirm? It's protocol, Tomlin said briskly. When a student's abilities appear to exceed their documented preparation, the department has an obligation to ensure academic integrity. He said it so smoothly, so politely, it almost sounded reasonable. Almost. Jalil hesitated. You're saying you don't believe my scores? Tomlin's smile was thin, performative. Don't take it personally. We simply maintain standards. It's not about you. It's about the process. But the way he said you carried a weight no policy could justify. Jalil exhaled slowly, nodding. All right, he said. I'll have them sent. Excellent. Tomlin closed the folder with a soft snap. And Mr. Carter, do refrain from dramatizing this matter. It's not disciplinary, merely procedural. Procedural. The word lingered, sterile and cutting. Jalil left the office feeling smaller somehow, though he'd done nothing wrong. Outside, the hallway buzzed with chatter and footsteps, but everything sounded distant, muffled. That night, he called his mother. She was cooking. He could hear the sizzle of oil in the background, smell the memory of her fried chicken even through the phone. What's wrong, baby? She asked immediately. He hesitated, then said, They asked for my transcripts. Why? Because I did something they didn't expect. A long pause. Don't you let them shake you, Jalil, she said firmly. You worked too hard to get there. You earned it. Let them check. Every grade, every test, you earned that. He nodded, though she couldn't see it. Yeah. But that night, while he studied in the dorm common area, whispers reached him again, this time from two students on the couch nearby. They're investigating him. Yeah, Tomlin reported it. Said there might have been an admission oversight. Like what? Like, maybe he's not supposed to be in Calc 4. He turned slightly, catching their eyes. They went silent. The weight of their words hung in the air like fog. By morning, the rumors had metastasized. In the cafeteria line, someone whispered, They're auditing that kid's file. In the library. He got in through the diversity program, right? In the group chat. Guess he's not as legit as he looks. Racism had a way of dressing itself up in paperwork. Polite fonts, official phrases. It never shouted. It just smiled while it erased. Later that week, an email arrived from the Academic Standards Office. Subject verification request. Body, please provide documentation for your mathematics coursework and standardized testing results. This is part of a random audit. Random. He read it 3 times, jaw tight. It wasn't random, not when he was the only one receiving it. Still, he complied. He scanned his high school transcripts, ACT scores, and the community college certification he'd earned for completing advanced math credits. A few days passed. No reply. Then came another message, this time from the assistant dean of admissions. We noticed some irregularities in the scoring report dates. Could you clarify when exactly your scores were submitted? We're just making sure no administrative errors occurred during your admission cycle. Jalil closed his laptop, his pulse thudding. He could see the shape of it now, the soft, bureaucratic form of disbelief. Every line of inquiry said the same thing. You're too good to be true. He wanted to scream, but he couldn't, because the trap was invisible, each word polished with politeness. If he reacted, he'd be labeled defensive. If he stayed quiet, he'd be complicit in his own dismissal. The following Monday, he went to Tomlin's office again, unannounced. The professor looked up from his papers, clearly irritated. Mr. Carter, he said dryly. Is there something you need? I sent my transcripts, Jalil said. Everything's in order. Tomlin nodded slowly, folding his hands. Yes, I saw that. The dean's office is still reviewing them. Reviewing what? Authenticity, he said simply. The word hit harder than an insult. Jalil's voice steadied, but his eyes didn't. You're accusing me of falsifying records? I'm not accusing you of anything, Tomlin replied coolly. I'm ensuring the integrity of the program. You understand how sensitive admissions can be these days, especially with all these equity initiatives. There it was, the unspoken phrase made visible. Jalil stood there, every nerve burning, but he didn't give Tomlin what he wanted. The reaction, the anger, the proof of stereotype. He only said, You'll get your verification. Then he left. That night, he couldn't sleep. The walls of his dorm seemed closer somehow, the ceiling lower, every noise in the hallway, laughter, doors shutting, footsteps sounded like judgment. He sat at his desk staring at his notebooks, wondering what all his discipline had been for, if the system could erase it with a single doubt. He thought of his mother's voice. You worked too hard to get there. So he opened his laptop and drafted an email, calm, precise, factual, addressed to the dean's office. Dear committee, I am submitting additional verification of my academic record as requested. I hope the review will proceed fairly and swiftly. I trust that my work will speak for itself. He reread it twice before hitting send. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear but from exhaustion. When he finally stepped outside for air, the corridor lights flickered dimly. The hallway was empty, except for his door. Something was taped to it. He froze. It was a folded sheet of lined paper, written in messy black marker. Go back where you belong. His throat tightened. The hallway stayed silent. The words, crude and anonymous, glared back at him. In that moment, Jalil understood something he hadn't wanted to admit. Brilliance wasn't armor. Excellence didn't protect him. Not here. Because the problem he was solving now wasn't mathematical. It was systemic. That night, Jalil finds a note on his dorm door. Go back where you belong. The paper was gone by morning. Not the note that had been torn down before most students had woken up, crumpled and flushed. No, the paper that disappeared was the one that mattered. Jalil's problem set submission for Advanced Calculus 2, the lab component of his course. It was supposed to be a straightforward upload PDF file, scanned work, digital timestamp, university portal, routine. But when he logged in to double-check before class, the submission page showed a gray error box. No file found. Please submit before deadline. His brows furrowed. He knew what he'd done. He had uploaded the file 2 days early. He'd even received the system's automated confirmation email. He never deleted those. It was still in his inbox. He clicked refresh. The error message didn't change. He clicked history. The submission log was blank. His pulse picked up, but he swallowed it down. Not now. Don't jump. He tried again. Nothing. Same message. Same erasure. Down the hall, his alarmed mind still quieted itself with reason. Maybe a server glitch. Maybe an admin update. Maybe something else. But deep inside, he already knew. Something was happening. And it was getting bolder. By the end of the week, Jalil Carter had become both myth and mirror on campus. A story half whispered, half feared, entirely misunderstood. To some, he was a symbol of resistance. The black kid who defied odds, stood tall, and bent a racist system to his brilliance. A few black students started nodding to him in passing, silent gestures of respect. A small article had even appeared in the Harwich University Gazette. Buried in the features section, freshman phenomenon shakes calculus expectation. But admiration lived quietly in shadows. The louder energy came from somewhere else. In class, group projects suddenly shifted. Where Jalil had once been auto-assigned to random clusters, now he found himself alone. White classmates politely deferred. We're full already, or actually, we're doing a different topic. A few didn't even reply to his emails. He ended up doing entire assignments alone. In one lecture, he raised his hand to ask a question about a contradiction in the textbook's integral assumptions. Dr. Lewin, a tenured professor from the mathematics board, looked at him with a half-smile and said, "That's ambitious reasoning. Let's not overcomplicate things." Another professor responded to one of his midterm proofs, a 6-page solution stitched together with elegance and clarity, with the comment, "Creative approach. But real mathematics values caution over flair." Caution over flair. Every week, a new phrase. Every comment a stone chipped into his foundation. It wasn't that he was doubted for being wrong. It was that he was doubted because he was right. And being right too often made the room colder. He noticed it in the eyes. That flicker of defensiveness in professors when he corrected small errors. The way classmates flinched when he arrived early and sat front row. The way conversations fell silent when he entered a study room. Even when praised, it came twisted. "Wow, you're smarter than I thought. You must have had a great math teacher at your school. What are you? Some kind of savant." Behind every compliment, a quiet confession. "We didn't expect you to be this good, and we're not comfortable with it." One evening, a junior named Ryan, tall, pale, always wearing Patagonia, approached him after a campus debate on equity in STEM fields. "Hey man," Ryan said, hands in his pockets. "No offense, but you don't think it's kind of unfair, right?" Jalil looked at him, confused. "What is?" Ryan shrugged. "I mean, like, your story's cool and all, but it kind of makes it hard for the rest of us, doesn't it?" Jalil blinked. "Hard how?" "Well, now professors expect miracles from everyone. Like, you solve some crazy problem in 60 seconds, and suddenly the bar's through the roof." Jalil tilted his head. "You think me doing my work makes it harder for you?" Ryan scratched his neck. "I'm just saying it's weird. It's like you're being used as this proof that the system isn't racist, when that's not accurate." Jalil stared at him. "So because I'm succeeding, I'm making racism harder to point out." Ryan shrugged again, clearly uncomfortable now. "I didn't mean it like that. Just food for thought." And with that he walked away, satisfied that he'd been civil. That night, Jalil skipped his dorm. He walked Across the quad, through the courtyard, around the reflecting pond, the library steps, and finally to the math lab. The door was locked, lights dimmed, but he had the key code for TA hours. He tapped it in, stepped inside, and sank into a chair near the corner computer station. He sat in silence. The lab smelled of whiteboard cleaner and dry carpet. His mind was noise, not loud, but constant. Whispers, stares, passive remarks, missing files, impossible standards. He could solve a differential equation in under a minute, but he couldn't find a formula for being seen as simply enough. He opened his laptop and logged into the portal again. Checked the error. Still gone. No record of his lab paper. His fingers hovered above the keys, then clicked into his email. He typed, subject missing submission. Urgent. Dear Professor Lin, I submitted my paper on time for the Applied Integration Lab, but it seems to have vanished from the system. I have the original file and confirmation email. Please advise. Best, Jalil Carter. He hit send, but the knot in his stomach didn't budge, because he already knew how this would go. The next morning, Professor Lin responded. Jalil, I checked the system. Unfortunately, without a submission timestamp, the paper won't qualify under department policy. I understand technical issues are frustrating, but rules are rules. Happy to discuss in office hours. Rules are rules. Jalil read the message twice, then closed the laptop. He didn't scream. He didn't curse. He just sat there. He had followed the rules. Every time. But the rules had a habit of changing when they applied to him. That afternoon, Jalil printed the paper out, all 13 pages, and carried it to the department office in a manila folder. The receptionist gave him a confused smile when he said he was dropping off a physical copy of a digital assignment. Didn't they already mark that one late? She asked. I submitted it on time, Jalil said. She looked down at the folder, then back at him. I'm sure they'll figure it out, she said, with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. He thanked her and walked out. In the student lounge, he sat alone. His phone buzzed every few minutes. Reminders, updates, pings from the group chats he rarely participated in. But then one message hit differently. A DM from someone he didn't know. I Tess Coleman 93. Hey, just a heads up, you're not the only one they've done this to. Check your email again. The confirmation you got? It's not in the system anymore. He froze. He went back to his inbox. Scrolled to the confirmation email. Gone. Just gone. He checked trash, spam, archive. Nothing. His pulse rose like a siren. His mind raced. That email had been there. He remembered the subject line, the time, the attached file. He never deleted it. Ever. And yet, nothing. His fingers trembled as he typed back. Who are you? What do you mean others? The reply came quickly. Let's just say I worked in admin for 2 years. You're not the first. You're just the loudest. Jalil stared at the screen. What did that even mean? He typed again. Why me? This time, no reply. Later that evening, in lab session, Professor Lin went around the room, collecting participation reports. Jalil approached her desk. I wanted to follow up, he said, keeping his voice steady. About the missing file. I brought a printed copy and she cut him off with a polite smile. Thank you, Jalil. But I already processed the grading. I'm sorry, but without a timestamp I had to mark it late. He looked down at her hands. Empty. She didn't even check the file. Didn't ask to see it. It wasn't late, he said, more firmly now. I understand that's what you believe, she replied, but policy is clear. He opened his mouth to respond, then stopped. Because what was the point? The damage had already been done. And worse, it had been done cleanly. With deniability. With polish. He walked back to his seat in silence. Opened his notebook. Stared at the blank page. Around him, students chatted and typed, and clicked, immersed in formulas and functions. He felt like he was watching the scene from the outside. A museum exhibit of a world he was told he didn't quite belong in. Then, as he logged into the class portal again out of habit, a new message popped up on the dashboard. Paper not submitted. Late penalty applied. His breath caught. But what froze him wasn't just the grade. It was the second notification. Submission history cleared by admin override. His hand trembled. He stared at the screen. Admin override. Someone had erased it manually. Not a glitch. Not a fluke. Intentional. His genius had become a threat. And now the system was defending itself. During a lab session, a key paper Jalil submitted disappears from the system. The next 48 hours, were chaos disguised as order. Emails, meetings, administrative jargon that looked professional but sounded accusatory. Everything wrapped in courtesy, weaponized by tone. The notice came on a Monday morning. Subject line cold and sterile. Notification of academic integrity inquiry. At first glance it looked like spam, but when Jalil opened it, the words carved him open. This notice serves to inform you that your recent submission for theorem analysis paper Dynamic Stability of Nonlinear Systems has been flagged as potentially non-original. The submission system cannot verify authorship or timestamp. As per university policy, a formal inquiry will be conducted. He read it twice. Then again, his brain rejected it outright. Flagged? He hadn't even used digital assistants. He'd handwritten the entire paper. Every equation, every proof, scanned it himself at the campus library and uploaded the file. He scrolled down to the bottom of the email. The message ended with a line of bureaucratic calm. Please refrain from discussing this matter with other students or faculty until the investigation concludes. A muzzle disguised as professionalism. He stared at the screen for nearly a minute before whispering, "They're serious." By noon, the rumor had already escaped containment. Two classmates avoided eye contact in the hallway. One girl whispered to another, not quietly enough. They said he cheated. On that big paper? Yeah. Something about AI, or plagiarism detection. Apparently the system couldn't trace his file. Wow. Kinda ironic, huh? Kinda ironic. That's how they reduced him. Not a student. Not a thinker. Just irony wrapped in melanin. When he reached the cafeteria, a friend from freshman orientation, Malik, waved him over. Malik was one of the few other black students in the STEM program. Tall, soft-spoken, steady-eyed. "Man, what's going on?" Malik asked quietly. Jalil dropped his tray on the table. "They said my paper's untraceable." "Untraceable? They're implying I used AI, or that I didn't write it." Malik blinked. "That's..." He stopped himself, looking around the room. "You think Tomlin's behind this?" Jalil exhaled through his nose. "I don't know, but someone erased my work. Twice." Malik's face hardened. "That's not coincidence." "It never is," Jalil said quietly. He didn't finish his lunch. He couldn't eat. Later that afternoon, he was summoned to the Academic Conduct Committee. The office smelled of polished wood and fear, the kind of institutional power that spoke in calm voices, but made its victims small. Behind the desk sat a middle-aged woman, with a fixed smile. Assistant Dean Harper. Her tone was polite, clinical, and uninterested in truth.
"Mr. Carter, thank you for coming on such short notice."
He nodded. She motioned to the empty chair across from her. "This isn't a disciplinary hearing yet," she said. "We just need to clarify a few inconsistencies." He sat down, posture straight, eyes steady. She opened a manila folder, flipping through printed pages. "You submitted a theorem analysis paper on nonlinear systems, correct?"
"Yes."
"Our automated plagiarism software couldn't locate the original file in the submission database. We also noted that your references didn't align with university citation standards. My file was deleted from the system," Jalil said. "I have the original version saved. I even had an email confirmation, but it disappeared." Dean Harper smiled faintly. Pitying. "Sometimes students get creative when caught in a bind. I understand pressure can be immense, especially for someone in your position." He frowned. "My position? As a freshman in a 400-level class," she said quickly. "I'm just saying it's understandable." Understandable. A euphemism for expected. He leaned forward. "Ma'am, I handwrote that paper. I have the scanned pages, my notes, my scratch work. I can show you everything." She tapped her pen lightly on the desk. "Even if that's true, we can't verify authorship. The system requires metadata validation. Without that, your submission technically doesn't exist." He stared at her. "You're saying my work doesn't exist?" "I'm saying," she replied evenly, "there's no record that you created it." The absurdity of it almost made him laugh. They had erased the proof, then punished him for the erasure. Dean Harper closed the folder and folded her hands. "This will move to an inquiry panel. You'll have a chance to defend yourself. Until then, we'll be reviewing your prior coursework." He looked up sharply. "What does that mean?" "It's routine," she said with that same plastic smile. "We just want to ensure academic consistency across your record." He understood instantly. They were questioning everything now. His placement scores, his earlier tests, his right to be in the room at all. He stood. Thank you, he said quietly. You'll get your consistency. She nodded. Good. We all just want fairness. Fairness. Another word that no longer meant what it should. That night, the campus felt alien. He walked through the quad, neon lamplight bouncing off wet pavement. He passed a group of students laughing near the fountain. One of them turned, met his eyes, then looked away too quickly. His inbox was a war zone of notifications. Urgent. Verification request pending. Follow-up. Academic review scheduling. Do not discuss this matter with peers. He shut his laptop and stared out the window. Outside, the trees swayed gently, under the yellow glow of the lamps. Inside, his mind churned with questions that had no answers. He had done everything right. Every equation, every proof, every rule. Yet somehow, the system had decided that being right wasn't enough. He had to prove he was real. He opened his desk drawer and pulled out the handwritten pages, dozens of them, each filled with dense symbols, tight logic, step-by-step derivations. He spread them across the desk like a mosaic of evidence. If they wanted proof, he'd give them proof. He stayed up past midnight, scanning each page again, labeling, time-stamping, storing duplicates on 3 separate drives. It was exhausting, methodical work, but he needed something tangible, something they couldn't erase. By 2 a.m. he slumped back in his chair, eyes stinging. A soft knock startled him. He froze. Then a voice. It's me. He opened the door. Malik stood there, hoodie up, expression grim. I heard, Malik said. They're holding a hearing Friday. Word is Tomlin pushed for it. Jalil's jaw tightened. Of course he did. Malik hesitated. You sure you want to keep fighting? This place eats people like us. Jalil looked past him, out toward the sleeping campus. If I stop now, he said, they win twice. By Friday morning, the storm had become official. He dressed in a pressed shirt and dark slacks, trying to look composed even though exhaustion weighed on him. As he walked toward the administration building, students' whispers trailed him like a shadow. That's him, the kid under investigation. Guess he wasn't a genius after all. He didn't flinch. Inside, the waiting area was silent, except for the tick of a wall clock. A secretary gestured toward a closed office door. The dean will see you now, she said. Jalil took a deep breath, adjusted his collar, and pushed open the door. The office was wide, filled with afternoon light, mahogany shelves, diplomas, an air of authority. And sitting across from the dean's desk, legs crossed, arms folded, an unreadable expression on his face, was Dr. Richard Tomlin. Jalil walks into the dean's office to defend himself, and sees Dr. Tomlin already sitting there. Jalil had always believed in rules, not because he trusted them, but because he believed he could outwork them. He had treated every standard, every test, every deadline, like a riddle that could be cracked with enough effort, enough discipline, but now he was learning the difference between rules and power. Rules were what they posted on websites. Power was who they chose to enforce them against. The first week after the dean's meeting, he submitted everything they asked for: hard copies, digital backups, annotated scans of every page. He even included time-lapsed video of him writing out a segment of the paper by hand. Silent. No response for 3 days. Then, a short email. The panel is still reviewing materials. You will be notified of next steps. He waited. Nothing. Checked in again. No reply. Meanwhile, the whispers didn't stop. In calculus, classmates who once asked for his notes now avoided sitting near him. In the library, he overheard a girl say, "If he's innocent, why hasn't he been cleared yet?" That line haunted him. The idea that justice moved quickly for the innocent. As if bureaucracy didn't bend under the weight of bias. As if delay wasn't its own punishment. Every time he walked into a building, he could feel the temperature drop. People didn't look at him. They looked around him. The second week, something broke. He was in the dorm lobby when he overheard a commotion between the RA and 2 students. They had been caught plagiarizing a paper from an online essay mill, caught red-handed, with receipts and all. But they weren't expelled. They weren't even reported to the academic board. The RA gave them a warning and made them write apology letters. That same day, Jalil got another email. Due to unresolved concerns regarding your academic submissions, your case has been escalated for formal disciplinary consideration. A hearing will be scheduled. Formal. Disciplinary. Expulsion was now officially on the table. He stared at the screen, hand trembling. There were no words left in him. That night he sat alone in the library basement, surrounded by stacks of books. The place was empty. The hour too late for undergrads, and too early for janitorial rounds. He leaned forward, head in his hands, and asked himself a question he had never let enter his mind before. What if I don't belong here? Not because he wasn't smart enough, but because the system had been designed to deny his existence. He thought of every room he'd walked into since arriving. Every sideways glance, every "you're so articulate," or "you're different from the others." Every syllabus that had space for numbers but none for names. Like his. He remembered an orientation session where a professor had said, "Here at Harwick everyone starts at the same line." But that was a lie. Some people were born standing on the finish line, and others had to prove every day that they deserved to start at all. He began compiling everything. Every email, every confirmation, every syllabus, timestamp version history. He printed a timeline, marked each incident. The erased paper, the missing confirmation email, the system override, the assistant dean's meeting, Tomlin's presence at the disciplinary hearing. He color-coded the differences between how his case was treated and the others. He created a spreadsheet. But the more he built his defense, the more he realized it wouldn't matter. Because evidence wasn't the point. Silence was. Silence was their weapon. Delay, confusion, invisibility. It made you seem paranoid, emotional, unstable. It made you question your own clarity. The system didn't need to beat you. It only needed to wear you down until you left. By the end of the third week, he hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night. His skin was tight with stress. Food tasted like dust. The word hearing became a ghost that followed him everywhere. He emailed the panel again. No reply. He visited Dean Harper's office. Receptionist said she was in a meeting. He called. Voicemail. It became clear, no one was planning to update him. They were just letting him rot in limbo. One afternoon, on his way out of the math building, he stopped in the hallway to rest. His legs were sore from pacing. His back ached from hours of scanning files. He leaned against the cool wall, eyes shut. That's when he saw the janitor. An older black man, gray beard, work shirt, name tag, Freddie. He was mopping near the stairwell. They'd nodded at each other before. Jalil had always said hi, respectful. But today, Freddie stopped. He looked around, then walked over quietly. "You all right, young blood?" he asked, voice low. Jalil hesitated, then nodded once. Trying to be. Freddie wiped his hands on a rag and glanced down the hallway. Empty. "You ever feel like this place wasn't made for you?" he asked. Jalil exhaled slowly. "Every day." Freddie nodded. "You remind me of a kid I saw here a few years back. Brilliant. Didn't make it." "What happened?" Freddie didn't answer at first. Then he reached into his cart, pulled out an envelope, and slipped it into Jalil's hand. "Don't open it here," he said. "Don't tell anyone who gave it to you." Jalil blinked. "What is it?" Freddie met his eyes. "Proof." Then he walked away. Back in his room, Jalil locked the door and shut the blinds. He tore open the envelope. Inside was a small USB drive, taped to a sheet of paper. Written on the paper in scratchy handwriting. "You didn't hear it from me, but they've done this before." He plugged the drive in. Files loaded. Dozens of them. Scanned complaints. Email printouts. Letters from black students who had disappeared mid-semester, citing mental health withdrawals, personal conduct violations, or transfer requests. Attached PDFs of assignments that had been flagged as unverified, just like his. Some names he recognized from his first week. Students he'd seen once. Gone without explanation. One file stood out. Kelamandre Final Paper 2019. Attached to it, a scanned letter from the dean's office stating it was suspiciously untraceable. Same phrasing, same system, same erasure. Jalil sat there, breath caught. This wasn't a fluke. It was a pattern. A quiet janitor slips Jalil a USB drive. "You didn't hear it from me, but they've done this before." The USB drive clicked softly as Jalil pushed it deeper into the port. The screen flickered, loading files that looked as if they hadn't seen daylight in years. Folder names scrolled upward, random letters, unmarked dates, code-like symbols. Nothing organized, nothing that made sense. But when he opened one, just one, everything changed. Inside the first folder, scanned complaint forms. Student grievances, hand-signed and stamped, most of them with the same line repeated again and again. Unverified academic work. At first, it looked like coincidence. A handful of isolated cases over a few years. But as he clicked deeper, the pattern sharpened. The students weren't random. Every single one of them was black. Different majors. Different years. Same accusations. Same outcome. He felt the air leave his chest. He clicked another file. A transcript of an internal email chain from 2018. The subject line read, "Diversity Retention Concerns." The thread was between several administrators, including a familiar name, R. Tomlin. Certain students from equity programs have demonstrated high initial performance inconsistent with their prior academic backgrounds. Recommend cross-checking all independent work for verification issues. The next response came from the dean's office. Keep all communications internal. We don't need unnecessary attention on this. Handle quietly. Jalil leaned back in his chair, staring at the glow of the monitor. The words blurred for a moment as his pulse pounded. It wasn't paranoia. It wasn't bad luck. It was policy, invisible, selective, deliberate. He opened another folder labeled simply Archived Cases. Names scrolled by. Andrew Kellum, Sophia Turner, Brian Chandler, Kimberly Neal. Every file told the same story in sterile administrative language. Withdrawn due to academic integrity violation. Untraceable submission. Failure to verify authorship. He clicked Andre Kellum's. At first, the document was corrupted. A garbled mess of code. But embedded beneath the text, hidden in a small zipped folder, he found one PDF. Andre Kellum. Final paper. He opened it. It was beautiful. Page after page of precise, handwritten calculations, complex reasoning, elegant notation, the work of a mind that saw mathematics not as mechanics but as art. Then attached to the file a note. The last email Andre had sent to his department. I'm attaching proof of my work again. The system keeps deleting my file. Please confirm this version is received. I can't afford to lose credit for this assignment. I've worked my entire life for this. There was no reply. The file after that was a one-line note from Dean Harper's office. Case closed. Student withdrew. He hadn't withdrawn. They'd erased him. Jalil sat frozen, his reflection faint in the screen. He thought about Freddie the janitor and the quiet weight in his voice when he'd said, "They've done this before." He hadn't meant once. He'd meant again and again. Jalil knew what he had to do. The next morning he skipped class. He printed the files. Not all. Just enough to prove the pattern. He placed them in an envelope and walked straight to the campus newspaper office. It was small, tucked behind the humanities quad, a maze of posters, coffee cups and loud arguments about censorship. Behind a desk sat Nadia Lin, the editor-in-chief, a senior journalism major known for publishing stories that made faculty nervous. When he introduced himself, her eyes flicked with recognition. "You're the math kid," she said, "the one they're investigating." He didn't react. "I need your help." She gestured for him to sit. "Okay, start talking." He placed the envelope on her desk. "These are files from the university servers. Complaints, deleted grades, admin memos. It's a pattern. They're erasing black students." Her expression changed instantly. "How did you get this?" "I can't tell you that." She opened the folder, flipping through the printouts. Her journalist instincts sharpened with every page. "This is huge," she murmured. "If this is real, it's not just misconduct. It's systemic fraud." "It's real," Jalil said quietly. "And I can prove it." She looked at him carefully. "You understand what publishing this could mean? For you?" He nodded. "If I stay quiet, I lose anyway."
Nadia took a long breath. "All right. I'll need time to verify these sources. But if this checks out," she paused, her voice softening. "You might not just be fighting for yourself, Jalil. You might be fighting for everyone they buried."
He stood. "That's the plan." That night, the campus was cloaked in autumn wind. Leaves scraped across the walkways. Jalil sat under the statue at the center of the quad, the university's motto etched into stone beneath it. Veritas et virtus. Truth and virtue. He laughed under his breath. The words felt hollow now. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number again. "You're digging in places you shouldn't." He froze. The message was followed by another. "Stop, or you'll end up like the others." He looked around the dark quad, empty, except for the flickering lamps and distant chatter. His hands trembled, but he didn't delete the message. He screenshotted it instead. Proof. Always proof. He wasn't going to stop. 2 days later, Nadia called. Meet me. Library cafe. Bring your laptop. When he arrived, she was sitting in the corner booth, eyes darting between her screen and a thick binder. You were right, she said without looking up. I cross-checked those student IDs. Every one of them was enrolled here. Everyone left mid-semester. No graduation records. No transfer logs. It's like they vanished. She slid the binder toward him. Inside were names, photos, enrollment dates, program notes. A silent cemetery of erased lives. And this one, she continued, tapping a name near the bottom. Andre Kellum, valedictorian of his class. Published in the Journal of Applied Mathematics at 18. After his withdrawal, every link to his work was removed. Even the journal pulled his citation. Jalil frowned. That's not accidental. Exactly. She turned the laptop toward him. But get this. I found him. On the screen was a Facebook page. Sparse, quiet, abandoned. A single profile photo of a young black man, in a mechanic's jumpsuit. Location tag Dayton, Ohio. According to public records, he's working at a tire shop now, she said softly. No degree, no LinkedIn, no trace of his academic history. Jalil stared at the photo. The face looked young, proud, frozen in the moment before his future had been rewritten. He whispered. They destroyed him. Nadia nodded. If you can reach him, we can build a story they can't ignore. The next morning, Jalil boarded a bus heading west. The university town faded behind him. Its glass libraries, its marble plaques, its quiet arrogance. The further he went, the lighter he felt, though the weight of truth pressed heavier with each mile. 6 hours later, the bus rolled into Dayton. The tire shop wasn't hard to find. A squat brick building with peeling paint and a faded sign. Kellum Auto and Tire. He stepped inside. The smell of oil and rubber filled the air. A radio played softly from the corner. Behind the counter stood a man in his mid-20s, wiping grease from his hands. Can I help you, he asked without looking up. Are you Andre Kellum? The man paused, eyes narrowing. Who's asking? My name's Jalil Carter, he said. I go to Harwick University. Andre froze. The rag in his hands dropped to the counter. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then, quietly, you shouldn't have come here. I found your files, Jalil said, the ones they deleted. I know what they did. Andre's eyes flashed with something between anger and fear. He walked to the door, flipped the sign to closed, and turned the lock. Follow me, he said. They moved into a small back office. The walls were lined with old trophies, high school certificates, yellowing math contest ribbons, a ghost of the life Andre used to live. He sat down heavily, rubbing his temples. You think you're the first? He asked softly. They've been doing this for years. I tried to fight it once. Got a lawyer. Thought I could win. What happened? They buried me, Andre said flatly. Said I fabricated data, said my mentor falsified signatures. I lost my scholarship, my housing, everything. No grad school would touch me. They called me unethical. That word follows you forever. Jalil's throat tightened. Why didn't you go public? Andre laughed bitterly. Go public with what? Screenshots? Deleted files? A black kid accusing an Ivy League of racism? You know how that sounds to them. Silence hung between them. Andre looked at him hard. You're smart, kid. Smarter than me. But you won't win this the normal way. They'll delay, deny, and then they'll erase you too. The only way out is to make them fear exposure more than they fear you. Jalil leaned forward. Then help me. Andre hesitated. His eyes softened, weary but burning with something Jalil hadn't expected. Guilt. He stood, went to an old filing cabinet, and pulled out a manila folder so worn the edges were curled. He handed it to Jalil. Inside were copies, complaint forms, emails, and one letter signed by a familiar hand. Dr. Richard Tomlin. The subject line read, Student Anomalies and Departmental Oversight. At the bottom, a single line. We can't let these outliers distort the data. Andre's voice was low when he spoke. They destroyed my future to protect their reputation. Don't let them do the same to you. Jalil's fingers trembled as he closed the folder. He had come looking for answers. But what Andre had given him was something far more dangerous. Proof that his fight wasn't against one man, but an entire machine built to erase people like him. Jalil tracks Andre down. What Andre tells him shakes him to the core. Andre sat back in the cracked leather chair, the faint hum of the shop's air compressor pulsing through the walls. His hands were stained with oil and regret. Across from him, Jalil clutched the manila folder, as if it were a fragile truth that might disintegrate if he let go. They killed my future, Andre said quietly. Not with a gun, not with a knife, just paperwork and silence. The words hit harder than any accusation could. There was no drama in his tone, only exhaustion, the kind that comes from years of being disbelieved. How? Jalil asked. Andre leaned forward, elbows on his knees. It started small. A grade dispute here, a missing reference there. Then it spread. My advisor stopped responding. My job offer at Caltech, gone overnight. They said they couldn't confirm my academic standing. Within 2 months, my name was mud. Jalil frowned. They coordinated it? Andre nodded. Oh, they don't call it that. They call it internal communication. You know, universities sharing information to protect standards. What it really means is when they decide you're not supposed to make it, they make sure no one ever touches your file again. He pulled open a drawer and handed Jalil a stack of old letters, rejection emails, withdrawn offers, unanswered appeals. I had professors who used to brag about me in conferences, Andre said, voice trembling slightly. After the accusations, they wouldn't even return my calls. I became radioactive, contamination by association. Jalil skimmed the papers. The language was hauntingly familiar, unverifiable, pending review, academic concern, each word a euphemism for erasure. Andre continued, they don't fail you in class. They fail you in silence. They cut your name out of the narrative. You go from prodigy to problem overnight. He looked up, eyes bloodshot but fierce. That's the Ivy filter. The what? Jalil asked. It's what we call it. Me, a few others I've found over the years. The Ivy filter. You hit a level of brilliance that challenges their image of what a black mind is supposed to be. And the system reboots. You don't fail because of your mistakes. You fail because of their comfort. Jalil sat in stunned silence. The air in the room felt heavier with every word. Andre lit a cigarette, a nervous habit he hadn't kicked. I tried to tell people, lawyers, journalists, even the NAACP. Nobody would touch it. Too risky. Too abstract. No one wants to go up against a machine that shapes their kids' futures. So you just stopped? Jalil asked. Andre stared at the smoke curling from the tip of the cigarette. You stop when no one believes you. When the system convinces you it's your fault. He let out a humorless laugh. You know what one dean told me? He said, sometimes genius and dishonesty look the same from a distance. Jalil clenched his jaw. They make you doubt your own integrity. They make you doubt your own reality, Andre said. A silence stretched between them. In that moment, Jalil saw himself reflected, not in the man Andre was now, but in who he could become if he let the system win. He broke the silence. You said others. Who are they? Andre hesitated, then reached into a box under the desk. He pulled out a wrinkled envelope, filled with names and phone numbers scribbled on scrap paper. 3 that I know, maybe more. Each story's different, but it ends the same. He slid the list across the table. The first name was Kimberly Neal, a biology student from Virginia. Jalil called her that evening from his hotel room. Her voice on the other end was brittle. You found Andre? Yes, Jalil said. He told me what happened. I need to understand. A pause. Then a soft laugh. Understand? You can't. Unless it's happening to you. It is, he said. They're trying to erase me too. The line went quiet. Finally she spoke. They accused me of fabricating lab data, said my results were statistically impossible. You know what that means? It means they didn't believe I was smart enough to be right. My advisor stopped defending me. The journal pulled my name from the study. I lost everything. What did you do after? I disappeared, she said simply. Got a job at a clinic. Changed my number. Every time I see someone mention that school, I get nauseous. Do you have any of your files? Jalil asked. I burned them, she whispered. You can't keep the evidence when you're the evidence. The second call was Brian Chandler, a physics major. He answered from a noisy background, sounded like an auto shop. Harwick? He said with a dry laugh. Man, I don't even say that name anymore. You must be crazy calling me about that place. I need to know what they did to you, Jalil said. They didn't do anything, Brian said. They just stopped doing everything, stopped approving my thesis, stopped replying to my emails, stopped processing my degree. You ever seen a man fail because no one will hit send? He coughed. They don't need to blacklist you. They just make you invisible. You can't fight what you can't see. The last person on the list was Sophia Turner, a computer science prodigy. Her number led to a disconnected line, but Jalil found her on LinkedIn, or what used to be her page. It was blank. No photo, no history, no degree, just a first name and a city, Oakland. He sent her a message anyway. I'm another Harwick student. I think what happened to you is happening to me. Hours passed. Then, a reply. If you're smart, you'll stop digging. The deeper you go, the more they take. He typed back immediately. They already took everything. She didn't respond again. That night, Jalil sat in the small motel room, surrounded by documents and names, a wall of stolen futures. The weight of it pressed into him until breathing felt mechanical. He could see the pattern clearly now, the machinery beneath the mask of meritocracy. For years he had believed that excellence could shield him, that if he were exceptional enough, undeniable enough, the system would have no choice but to accept him. But Andre, Kimberly, Brian, Sophia, they were proof that excellence wasn't protection, it was provocation. The higher you climbed, the louder the system whispered, "That's far enough." He rubbed his temples, staring at the glow of his laptop. He didn't want revenge. He wanted truth, documented, verified, undeniable truth, something that couldn't be dismissed as anger or emotion. He started drafting an exposé, meticulous, sourced, cross-referenced. He named no one, accused no individual. He just showed the data. He titled it, "The Ivy Filter: How Elite Institutions Quietly Erase Black Excellence." He planned to send it to Nadia at the campus paper. She'd promised to publish once she had verification. Together they could make it undeniable. He attached the files, wrote a short message, and hit send. A notification popped up. Delivery failed. Message undeliverable. He frowned. Tried again. Bounce back error. Recipient not found. He checked the address. Correct. He sent a test email to himself. Nothing. He tried logging into his university account. Access denied. Invalid credentials. His stomach dropped. He typed again, slower this time, double-checking each letter. Same message. He opened the student portal. Account suspended. Contact administrator. Cold realization hit him. They knew. Somehow, someone had seen what he'd tried to send. Maybe the system flagged it. Maybe someone inside the university network had been monitoring his uploads. Either way, they were faster than he expected. He reached for his phone to text Nadia, but before he could, another email appeared in his personal inbox. Not from the university this time. From admin@harwick. Subject: Account termination notice. Due to ongoing investigation and breach of digital ethics policies, your access to Harwick University systems has been suspended pending review. He read it 3 times, unable to process the cruelty of the phrasing. Digital ethics policies. They had just accused him of hacking his own innocence. His laptop screen dimmed. Then, without warning, shut off completely. He stared at his reflection in the black glass, his own face staring back, equal parts disbelief and fury. He realized then that he wasn't just fighting for his education anymore. He was fighting for his existence, the right to have his brilliance recorded, not rewritten. Outside, thunder rolled through the Ohio night. Inside, Jalil sat in silence, gripping the folder Andre had given him, the one with Tomlin's signature, the same hand that had erased dozens of others. Not this time, he thought. Not me. His email to the school newspaper mysteriously bounces, then his university login is revoked. By Monday morning, Jalil Carter no longer existed. Not officially. Not digitally. Not institutionally. His student ID stopped working first, the plastic card he used to scan into buildings and classrooms. When he tried to enter the math wing, the light flashed red. 3 tries, 3 rejections. The security guard didn't look up. "I'm a student," Jalil said, holding the card out. "There must be a glitch." The guard glanced at the tablet in his hand, shrugged. "If it doesn't work, you're not on the active roster." "That's not possible," Jalil replied, voice low. The guard's tone flattened. "I need you to step away from the door, sir." "Sir." The word felt colder than necessary. Jalil backed away, stunned. The air tasted metallic. The student traffic around him moved like a river. Unaware, uninterested, just another day at the university. He walked to the library next. Same result. Then the lab. Then the cafeteria. Then the dorm keypad. Every door. Red light. By noon, it was clear. Jalil hadn't just been suspended from the system. He had been exiled. At the registrar's office, a secretary with tight lips and tighter politeness looked him over like he was a customer in the wrong store. "There seems to be a hold on your student record," she said, typing slowly. "It's marked restricted. You'll need to speak to the Office of Conduct." "I already did," Jalil said. "They told me to wait for a hearing." "Well," she replied without looking up, "until then there's nothing I can do. Can I at least access my own transcript?" She gave a customer service smile. "You'll need to be in good standing for that." Jalil's voice dropped. "I am in good standing. No decision has been made." She glanced at him, then at the phone on her desk, her finger hovering over a button. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave now." He stepped back. Something inside him frayed a little more. By the end of the day, he had nowhere to go. He couldn't attend class, couldn't check out books, couldn't eat on campus. He wasn't even technically allowed inside his own dorm. A friend from freshman year, Malik, had to swipe him in through the back. "You look like a fugitive," Malik whispered. "I feel like one," Jalil replied. They sat in the common room as night fell, the air heavy with the silence of doors slammed shut. "You think this is it?" Malik asked. "You think they're gonna pull the trigger?" Jalil didn't answer. Because deep down, he already knew. The following morning brought another blow. This time through rumor. A classmate named Caitlin Marsh, a white sophomore in his data structures study group, had filed a complaint.
The charge? Verbal aggression and intimidating tone.
Jalil's phone buzzed with the notice from the Office of Conduct. No hearing date. No request for his version. Just a sterile notice logged into his inaccessible file. He remembered the session. He'd spoken up after Caitlin confused two variables in a shared model. He corrected her. Firmly. Yes. But not harshly. Still, the damage was done. It was his voice that made it threatening. Not what he said, but who said it. Later he learned that Caitlin told the coordinator she felt unsafe when he challenged her assumption. That he dominated the discussion. That his presence was disruptive to group dynamics. That word again, disruptive. The code switch for black brilliance that dares to question. Things escalated fast. In class, his name was quietly removed from the attendance sheet. In his group project, a white student named Trevor Lang submitted the final report, without Jalil's name on it. When Jalil confronted him, Trevor just smiled. "I thought you weren't part of the group anymore." "I wrote half that code," Jalil said. Eyes narrowing. "Can't verify that," Trevor replied. "Besides, it's about the team, right?" He walked away without another word. When Jalil tried to file a complaint, the TA said the project was already graded and closed. There would be no correction. 3 days passed. Then came the email. Actually, not an email. A letter delivered in an envelope addressed to his parents. His mother called first. "Baby," she said, voice trembling. "We just got a letter from the school." Jalil closed his eyes. "What does it say?" His father took the phone. "They're considering removing you from the university for conduct violations and academic integrity concerns." Jalil sat on the edge of his bed, silent. "Jalil," his father said, slower now, "they're giving us 10 days to respond." 10 days. 10 days before the Ivy League erased him permanently. Jalil's parents receive a formal letter from the university. He's being considered for removal. The letter hit the Carter household harder than anyone could have prepared for. While Jalil tried to strategize from the campus shadows, his parents were unraveling 2 states away. His mother called daily, voice frayed with worry, rereading phrases from the university's notice, as if decoding a threat. His father, usually quiet and restrained, cursed aloud when reading the words "students' conduct," combined with unresolved academic concerns. Jalil told them to hold tight, that he had a plan, but he didn't, until the plan found him. 3 days after the letter arrived, he got a call from an unfamiliar number. "Jalil, this is Mr. Givens. From Southside Tech Prep, his high school math teacher, mentor, lifeline." "I've been hearing things," Givens said. "Got a call from a friend in admissions. Said they're trying to wipe you out. That true?" Jalil hesitated. "It's worse than you've heard. Send me everything," Givens said. "Files, emails, screenshots, the works. I don't know what it'll change." "Don't worry about changing the system," Givens said. Just make it impossible for them to lie in silence. Jalil sent the documents that night, a bundle of compressed truth too heavy to carry alone. The journalist's name was Alyssa Dunn, senior correspondent for The Atlantic Report, a digital news outlet known for unearthing race and education stories that made institutions squirm. Within 24 hours of getting the tip from Mr. Givens, she called Jalil directly. "I read everything," she said. "I've covered school districts in Alabama that moved faster to clear up accusations than this university. What they're doing to you is calculated." She asked for an interview. He agreed, under one condition. No soft angles. No pity. "I wasn't going to write you as a victim," she said. "You're not." The article dropped 3 days later. Excellence on Trial: How an Ivy League University Targets a Black Math Prodigy, by Alyssa Dunn. The Atlantic Report. The opening paragraph pulled no punches. At just 18 years old, Jalil Carter solved an equation in under 60 seconds that left tenured professors stunned. What followed wasn't applause, but academic sabotage, erased submissions, suspicious investigations. Now he faces expulsion, not for cheating, but for being brilliant while black. Screenshots of his assignments, emails with redacted names, quotes from Andre Kellum and Kimberly Neal. Anonymous but unmistakable. Even Freddie the janitor was referenced, a longtime employee, who says he's seen students vanish before. Within an hour, the piece exploded on social media. "I stand with Jalil. Harwick exposed. Let him learn." Students on other campuses began tagging Harwick University in posts demanding answers. Celebrities reposted the story. Black academics called it a case study in educational whitewashing. TV segments rolled out within a day. But with attention came spin. The university responded in Their statement was bland, but surgical. Harwick University supports academic integrity and the well-being of all its students. While we cannot comment on individual disciplinary matters, we encourage civil dialogue and uphold our right to review academic discrepancies. We are committed to fostering an inclusive but orderly academic environment. Buried in the second paragraph were the key phrases: disruptive behavior, escalated tensions during group work, administrative challenges due to student non-compliance. They never said his name, but everyone knew who they were talking about. The narrative was shifting. Cable news got hold of the story. And with it, the erosion began. One panel on GBC News debated it under the title, "Is Ivy Racism Real or Overblown?" Another segment on a conservative outlet showed two white professors debating the headline, "Too Arrogant, Too Fast? When Confidence Becomes a Classroom Problem." They showed clips from Jalil's early TikTok, one where he solved a math riddle in under 10 seconds. "He's obviously bright," one commentator said, "but maybe he's confrontational. You can't come into elite spaces swinging elbows. Respect is earned, not demanded." The phrase "swinging elbows" echoed online for hours. By the end of the week, people weren't debating the sabotage. They were debating Jalil himself. He was now either a misunderstood genius being railroaded by racism, a cocky kid using race to shield his ego. The truth buried under headlines and think pieces was still the same.
He was being erased.
One credential at a time. Nadia, the campus journalist, called him in a panic. "They won't run your op-ed," she said. The editorial board said it's too risky to publish during an active investigation. But they posted 10 columns about the campus food protest. "Those didn't name the administration," she replied. "Yours does." He felt his stomach twist. Even the people who believed him were now afraid of saying so out loud. Meanwhile, whispers began to reach him from students still inside the system. One text read, "Heard your case came up in a faculty meeting. Tomlin said you were hostile." Another, "There's a rumor you threatened someone in the lab. People are scared." He hadn't even stepped into the lab in weeks. Reality was losing ground. Facts no longer mattered. Narrative did, and Harwick controlled that machine. Then came the challenge. The email arrived from a student-run academic forum CCing professors, department heads, and student leaders. Subject: Public Dialogue Proposal, Real-Time Problem-Solving Forum. The content was loaded. In light of recent publicity and to uphold transparency in academic expectations, Professor Grayson Welch, Department of Philosophy and Logic, invites Mr. Jalil Carter to a public demonstration of academic reasoning. The format will be live-streamed, timed, and independently verified. Mr. Carter may choose the topic within mathematics. The session will be monitored for decorum and accuracy. It wasn't an invitation. It was a provocation. Professor Welch was known for being a staunch conservative and vocal critic of intellectual inflation. He had publicly condemned DEI policies and claimed that academic rigor has been sacrificed for optics. He'd once said, "We need fewer diversity mascots and more mental discipline." Now he wanted to make Jalil a spectacle, a gladiator thrown into the digital arena. A test designed not to measure intellect, but to perform a public shaming. Malik was furious. "They're trying to bait you. Don't do it. They already erased me from the classroom." Jalil said, "Maybe this is the only place left." "What happens if you win?" Malik asked. "They'll say it was staged. If you slip once, they'll say you're a fraud. Either way, you lose." "I'm not doing it for them."
Then who?
Jalil looked down at his hands, rough from sleepless nights, stained with ink from notes that no longer counted. "For every black kid watching, wondering if they're next," he replied to the email, "I accept." A conservative professor on campus challenges Jalil publicly to solve a live problem on video. There were more cameras than chairs. 2 hours before the live stream began, the university's largest lecture hall was already packed. Students squeezed into stairwells, crouched in corners, stood shoulder to shoulder along the back wall. The buzz of anticipation drowned out the sound of shuffling feet and tapping keys. Outside, lines snaked around the building. Campus media outlets, YouTubers, podcast hosts, even local news vans had pulled up. This wasn't just a demonstration. It was a public reckoning. At the front of the stage sat a whiteboard the size of a billboard, freshly cleaned, its glossy surface reflecting the harsh overhead lights. In the center, a single table with 2 chairs. One for the challenger, one for the challenge. The invitation had been framed as a neutral academic forum. In reality, it was theater designed to corner Jalil, strip him of context and test him like an animal under glass. The logic professor who initiated it, Grayson Welch, sat off to the side, dressed in a charcoal blazer, crisp white shirt, and his signature smirk, the kind that suggested certainty that the stage had been set in his favor. He held a clipboard, a stopwatch, and a carefully selected problem that, by design, mixed obscure logic theory with high-level calculus. "This," he'd said in the planning session, "will show whether the young man's reputation is based on substance or spectacle." The subtext wasn't subtle. Backstage, Jalil stood facing a mirror. He wore a simple black button-down. No school logo, no branding, just clean, quiet defiance. His fingers trembled as he adjusted the collar, but his eyes, burnt from sleepless nights, remained fixed and steady. Malik stood behind him, arms crossed. "You sure about this?" "No," Jalil replied. "But that's never stopped me before." A stage manager knocked once. "You're on in 5. Malik placed a hand on his shoulder. "No matter what they say after this, you already won." Jalil nodded, then walked out into the light. Applause rippled as he stepped on stage, not thunderous but significant. Students from the Black Student Union rose to their feet. A few white students clapped hesitantly. Others didn't at all. Welch remained seated, eyes locked on the clipboard. The moderator, a bland university-appointed spokesperson, stood at the podium. "Today's event is a public exercise in academic discourse. Mr. Carter has agreed to solve a live problem provided by Professor Welch in front of a neutral audience. There will be no interruptions, no retakes, no audience interaction, just mathematics." Jalil stepped to his side of the table, standing tall. Welch handed him a folded sheet of paper with the problem handwritten in ink. Cameras zoomed in from multiple angles. The live stream feed hit 17,000 viewers in the first 2 minutes. Then 40. By the time the timer began, 8,000 people were watching. Jalil opened the paper. He read it once, twice. It was complex, deliberately so. A hybrid proof challenge, combining symbolic logic, nested quantifiers, and vector field theory. Designed to trip him up. Designed to humiliate. He closed his eyes, breathed, then stepped to the board and picked up the marker. Time began. 00. The first step was substitution. He restructured the logical premise using a series of equivalence laws, rewriting nested functions into simpler logic forms.
0, 0, 0, 35.
He transitioned into calculus mode. Partial derivatives flowed from his hand, clean and controlled. He paused only once, not to think, but to rewrite a segment with sharper clarity. He wasn't just solving, he was teaching. Mid-solution. 0, 0, 0. Whispers erupted in the room. Even Welch's brow lifted slightly. Sirazur's Jalil used a method rarely taught in undergrad. Fubini's theorem applied in reverse, interweaving multidimensional boundaries into the vector flow model.
Near 0248.
He set the marker down. Stepped away. Final answer. Proven. Total time 3 minutes and 2 seconds. The room fell utterly silent. Then applause. Shouting. Gasps. Disbelief. The live stream chat exploded. Holy. Give this man a degree right now. Best thing I've seen all year. Math goat. Why was he even on trial? On camera, Welch was stone-faced. He stood, adjusted his blazer, and offered his hand stiffly. Well done, he said, barely audible. Jalil shook it once, then turned to the crowd. He didn't smile. He didn't grandstand. He simply nodded once and walked off stage. Behind him, a university carefully, publicly crumbled. Within an hour, the video was trending across every platform. Clips of the solution cut into TikToks. Reaction videos poured in from professors worldwide, praising his fluid technique. Twitter lit up with calls to reinstate his scholarship, fire Dr. Tomlin, and investigate the administration. A new headline emerged. Harwick student silences Ivy League racism in 3 minutes flat. That night Jalil sat in Malik's dorm room, both of them scrolling through thousands of notifications. I think I broke the internet, Jalil said, half laughing, half dazed. You redefined it, Malik replied. Even his old high school math club group chat had reactivated with messages. Legend. They better put his face on the wall. MIT who. For a moment, hope felt real. Until the next morning. The first email arrived at 8. Subject, scholarship termination, notification. Mr. Carter, due to recent breaches in university protocol and violation of digital conduct guidelines, your scholarship is hereby rescinded effective immediately. The reasoning? Unauthorized streaming activity and misuse of university infrastructure. It was absurd. Laughable. But it was real. 2 hours later, the Office of Conduct emailed again. Subject, disciplinary hearing accelerated. In light of your recent actions and online activity, your review will be moved up to this Friday. You are advised to attend or risk automatic suspension. No appeal window. No advocate assigned. Just a countdown. By noon, the administration issued a press release to media outlets. While Harwick supports free expression, we remind students that compliance with internal procedures remains mandatory. Public pressure will not influence our commitment to integrity. They framed his livestream as a disruption. A stunt. A threat. Calls for accountability surged online. Civil rights groups tweeted their support. A law professor from NYU publicly offered pro bono representation. But behind the scenes, the university moved faster. Emails to faculty were sent discouraging engagement with external media. Department chairs were instructed to report any student disruptions tied to the Carter incident. Jalil went from symbol to liability overnight. That evening, as he walked past the student union, someone shouted from across the quad. Show off. He turned. A white student smirked, holding up his phone. Enjoy your 15 minutes, bro. They'll forget you by next semester. Jalil didn't respond. He kept walking. But inside, something fractured. When he returned to Malik's dorm, his friend was staring at his phone, pale. You need to see this, Malik said. He handed over the screen, a screenshot of a group chat. Harwick STEM Faculty Lounge. Anonymous, but partially redacted names, visible. At the bottom of a thread, one message stood out. Sent by R. Tomlin. Carter isn't a genius. He's an uppity threat who needs humbling. Let the process finish him. A classmate leaks a group chat. Dr. Tomlin called Jalil an uppity threat that needs humbling. The email hit national news desks before it landed in Jalil's inbox. Subject, Civil Rights Legal Team. Accepts representation of Harwick student Jalil Carter. Attached was a press statement from the Law Center for Equal Access, a heavyweight nonprofit legal advocacy group with a reputation for suing elite universities into reform. Their lead counsel, Marcia Alton, was a known figure, sharp, unshakable, and never lost a race-based academic discrimination case in her career. Jalil stared at the screen, numb. 2 days earlier, he was being cornered into a disciplinary hearing by a university determined to silence him. Now he was standing at the center of a national legal battle, one he never asked to fight. The depositions began that same week. Long hours, conference calls, lawyer prep sessions, page after page of testimony. Everything he said had to be clean, Factual, unbreakable. One misstep and the university would twist it into arrogance or fabrication. Marcia was calm but relentless in preparing him. They'll paint you as emotional. You stay surgical, she said. No tears, no raised voice. Just math. She looked him in the eye across the prep room table. You are not here to prove your pain, she said. You are here to prove their pattern. Jalil nodded. Drained. Yes, ma'am. While legal filings churned forward, the media hurricane swelled. Some called him a warrior. Others called him an opportunist. Every article felt like a punch, with a camera flash behind it. One magazine cover showed a shadowy silhouette of Jalil's face next to the headline. Too smart, too fast, too black. Cable debates exploded again. On GBC, an anchor asked, should students be able to sue just because they feel misunderstood? On VXTV, a host suggested, maybe this is the price of pushing people through elite systems before they're socially mature. They never said black. They didn't have to. Jalil stopped checking Twitter after the death threat started. His DMs were flooded. You're a fraud. Affirmative action freak. Go back to community college. You set us back 50 years. Even his personal email wasn't safe. He got messages pretending to offer job interviews, only to open attachments laced with racist memes and doctored screenshots accusing him of cheating. The most brutal messages didn't scream. They whispered. They'll never really let you in. You know that, right? At home, the war spilled into his parents' lives. News vans parked down the street. Reporters knocked on the front door asking for comment. Tabloid journalists offered cash for inside stories. His father cursed at one, told him to get off the lawn. His mother turned the curtains into a permanent shield. She stopped going to church. Every prayer felt like a news update. Back on campus, the tone had shifted. Students either avoided Jalil completely, or stared too long. A few allies still stood firm. Malik, Nadia, the Black Student Union. But mostly he was alone. Even professors who had once smiled in hallways now passed him like a ghost. One TA said it to his face. I can't be seen talking to you. I hope you understand. He did. It was safer for them to pretend he never existed. The irony was cruel. The higher his profile rose, the more invisible he became in the institution that should have celebrated him. Through it all, he kept doing the only thing that gave him peace. He solved equations. Not for the court, not for Twitter, but for himself. Late nights in Malik's room, on borrowed notebooks, scribbling through abstract problems that no longer had any academic value. He filled pages with work that would never be graded. It was the only space left where logic still meant something, where the rules didn't move when he touched them. Numbers didn't lie to him. People did. But the pressure took its toll. He slept in fits, ate irregularly. He started waking up with his heart already racing, body tight like a clenched fist. Sometimes he wouldn't speak for hours, not out of anger, but because there was nothing left in him to give. In moments alone, he'd ask himself the questions he never voiced aloud. What if I had just stayed quiet? What if I'd let them erase me and moved on? What did I win if I lose everything else? Then came the unexpected twist. A week before the disciplinary hearing, a recruiter reached out. Not just any recruiter, but one from Aurora Logic, a major Silicon Valley firm known for developing next-gen AI modeling. They offered a fully paid summer internship. 6 figures. Relocation covered. Housing in Palo Alto. Prestigious. Career-defining. Attached was a formal offer letter. He stared at it in disbelief. It was everything he'd worked for. Until he reached the bottom of the email. Conditions of acceptance. Candidate must agree not to publicly comment on pending litigation, institutional actions, or related academic disputes for the duration of the internship period. Candidate may not represent themselves as a student activist or civil rights plaintiff while under Aurora employment. He reread the paragraph 3 times, then sat back in his chair, eyes heavy. They were offering him a future, under one condition. Silence. A major Silicon Valley firm offers him an internship, with one brutal condition. Jalil Carter's email inbox pinged again, though ping hardly captured the weight behind a new message from Aurora Logic. He stared at the offer. Again, the words on the screen looked like redemption. 6-figure stipend, leadership title, relocation to Palo Alto, housing provided, start date in 8 weeks. His heart hammered. He'd worked nights, taught himself integrals from used textbooks, sacrificed everything to get here. It should have been the dream. But under the dream was a condition. A restricting clause. More than financial incentive. A silencing contract. No public comment about litigation. No mention of his lawsuit, his battle at Harwick University. No lecture about racism. No activism. They wanted him to be a poster genius. Brilliant, composed, tidy, grateful, silent, to be celebrated. Yes, but only if he said nothing that rattled the institution. Be the tech wonderkind, not the active. Late that night, he sat on the crackling dorm room mattress, the offer letter glowing on his laptop. Malik leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. Man, this could set you up for life, he said quietly. You'll want that. Jalil didn't respond. The room smelled of late-night coffee and fatigue. He closed his eyes. It's a trap, he said finally. They're buying me. They're giving me a title but trading me my voice. Malik nodded. Everyone's telling you to take it. Your family. Your teachers. They say, you fought enough. Now get paid. But you don't owe them your battle forever. Jalil looked away. What if I take it and I'm free financially, but forfeit the reason I fought in the first place? What if I become their symbol, not their reformer? Silence stretched. Malik's tone softened. What you fought for was bigger than you. Maybe this gives you the platform, but built by their standards. Jalil interrupted. And under their rules, they want me quiet. That's exactly what they did at Harwick, when they erased me. Swap paper chasing for paycheck. Stop the lawsuit. Start the product demo. No stories. No disruption. He got up and paced. The wall behind his laptop was covered in printouts. Emails, transcripts, screenshots, his case file. Each sheet a silent witness. He felt them like weight in the room. If I take this, he said, then I lose them. My peers, my truth. I become what they want. A vignette, not a vindication. Malik reached out. And stay broke while fighting. That's where they want you. Starving and symbolic. Jalil's fists clenched. I didn't come this far to be symbolic. I came here to be real. He unzipped his backpack and pulled out his notebook. He opened to a blank page. For a moment, he stared at the nothingness. Then he started writing. Equation isn't just numbers. It's truth in motion. He wrote slower, deliberate. He needed that connection because the rest of his life felt unraveled. The next morning, his mother called. She said the offer sounded amazing. Son, you deserve this, she said softly. You've done more than any kid from our block ever did. She paused. I just want you safe. He heard the tremor in her voice. He remembered the agents at the door, the news vans, the trolls, the empty cafeteria seats. He swallowed. Mom, he said, I'm sorry you have to share this with everyone. No, baby, I'm proud, she said, voice strong. Then quiet. You just have to remember, you're still you. How will I know? He whispered. You'll feel it. Inside. He hung up, tears threatening. The stake wasn't money. It was identity. In between all this, legal filings advanced. His counsel told him the case was scheduled for a federal hearing. This internship didn't wait. The lawsuit didn't pause. He was hurtling toward two life-changing decisions with no roadmap. One evening, he showed up for a campus event, hoping to reclaim some normalcy. He entered the engineering lab corridor and saw doors locked for him again. Staff stationed at the doors glanced away, his student ID, still red-lit. He walked into the hall anyway, felt the collective quiet. Someone whispered his name, then hushed. A door closed behind them. Here was the real cost of visibility. He had become too big to ignore but too threatening to welcome. That night, he received a voicemail from Aurora Logic's HR department. Please review attached contract for non-disclosure and non-publicity clauses. Notify us by upcoming Friday. Then a second voicemail. Our talent team is excited about your future. Confirm your global mobility budget preference. The tone was positive. The silence compulsory. He stared across his dorm room at the printed letter again. His reflection in the window was a shadow behind the light. In the weekend, Jalil walked into a cafe not far from campus. He ordered a coffee, sat by the window. He watched groups of students pass, some looking at him with curiosity, others with caution. He pulled out his notebook and wrote again. Freedom is speaking truth, silence profit. He stopped writing and shoved it back in his bag. His phone buzzed. An alert, Aurora Logic, welcome package enclosed. He ignored it. Then his lawyer Marcia called. We've got a new development, she said. It might change your timeline with the firm. Jalil leaned forward. What is it? There's a counter-offer from the university, she said quietly. They want to settle. They'll reinstate your scholarship if you drop the complaint. He felt the room spin. They want your silence anyway, he said. Yes, she said. The money's different. The terms are similar. The balance sheet of power spread out between them. Top-tier tech company with silence clauses. Top-tier university offering freedom. But only if he backed down. Either way, his fight, his story, his voice was on the bargaining table. Later that night, he woke up in a cold sweat from a nightmare. He was back in the lecture auditorium. The lights off, all seats empty, the board erased. On the board his name in chalk. Then the underlined word removed. He sat up, his chest heaving. For a moment he didn't know where he was. He walked to the window. Saw the silhouette of the campus, across the quad, the quiet buildings, the dark windows. His reflection looked tired. More than tired. Betrayed. The next day, he met with the Aurora Logic recruiter, via video call. She smiled and offered him the world. This is your moment, she said. Global team. Unlimited potential. He saw the contract on screen. It had a paragraph. The candidate may not publicly discuss the litigation involving Harwick University, or derive compensation from that narrative. He swallowed. Her smile froze for a moment. Then she said, let me know your decision by Monday. He ended the call and turned off his camera. He didn't look at the screen again for hours. When he did, he saw an email from Nadia, the campus journalist. Breaking. Student math genius faces two futures. Will publish Monday. He felt a flicker of fear, not about the intern offer, but about the story being shaped without his consent. That night, he walked across the campus quad. Lights glimmered. Leaves rustled. The air smelled like rain. He stopped at the statue of the university founder. He ran his fingers on the cold stone. He whispered, help me do right. Because he knew what taking the tech job would mean. Money, status, resume. But also abandonment of the reason he'd fought. And what giving up the job meant. Continuing the fight. Living uncertain. Facing backlash. Possible expulsion. But staying true. He dropped to one knee on the grass. He closed his eyes. He could feel the ground beneath him. The heart of his story. The notes of his father's voice. His mother's labored prayers. Andre's erased work. And in the silence, he heard the question, what will you sell? And the answer echoed back, not my truth. Because he realized the battle had never been about being a genius. It was about being seen. He finally stood up. In the distance, the federal courthouse loomed. He stared at it. The letter had come. The internship had come. Now the case had come. He walked toward it, alone but resolved. Jalil walks into the federal courthouse, alone, ready to testify. The morning of the hearing arrived like a thunderclap. Jalil Carter walked into the federal courthouse in his crisp dark suit, tie tightened, but inside he felt fragile, nearly invisible beneath the vaulted ceilings and towering wood panels. He passed security without fanfare. The heavy doors closed behind him with a soft thud. His parents sat in the nearby gallery, silent yet unmistakably present. His mother's hands folded tightly in her lap. His father's jaw set with silent anger. They were the only two faces he recognized in the sea of attorneys, reporters and observers. Opposite him sat the university's council, flanked by senior administrators from Harwick University. They looked composed, calm, rehearsed. The judge, a woman whose reputation for stern fairness preceded her, entered quietly. The room rose. She nodded once, took her seat, and the hearing began. The plaintiff's opening statement lasted only a dozen minutes. Then the floor opened to Jalil. He rose. The microphones registered his voice not in amplified booms, but in quiet clarity. My name is Jalil Carter, he said. I came here to learn. He paused. He looked out at the room of listeners. He looked at the judge. I didn't want fame. I wanted respect. In that moment, the fabricated narrative of arrogance slipped away. The man before them was not a spectacle, just a student who loved mathematics. His attorney, Marcia Alton, whispered, start when you receive the chalkboard problem. Jalil did. He spoke slowly, measured. He described the day he walked into Dr. Richard Tomlin's lecture and solved the problem in front of the class. How the promise of belonging dissolved into suspicion, even then. He paused and let the memory sit. He told how the paper was erased, how his transcripts were audited, how group projects ignored him, how doors locked themselves against him, not because he failed, but because he succeeded. Eyes in the courtroom shifted. Reporters scribbled. The counsel for the university writhed in their chairs. Then he rose slowly, walked to a small table, and placed his handwritten notebook in front of the court. The pages were crammed full of calculus, logic, symbols. Each sheet bore his name in his own hand, dates, timestamps, edits and corrections in his pen. He said, "This is me. These notes were made before I uploaded the paper. They match the version the university said was untraceable." He stepped back. He folded his arms at his waist. For once in this ordeal, he didn't speak fast. He didn't show anger. He showed truth. In that stillness, the room shifted. When the defense counsel rose to cross-examine, he asked his questions, thick with protocol, thin with empathy. "Mr. Carter, did you ever use automated assistance to complete your submission?" Jalil paused, held the stare. "No," he said. "I handwrote every page." "Then why is your file missing proper metadata?" He looked at the counsel, and then back at the judge. "Because it was deleted, by someone who didn't want the record to exist." A hush stretched. The judge jotted notes. Counsel glanced at one another. In the gallery, his mother turned away. His father exhaled so quietly it nearly didn't register. The judge leaned forward. "Do you have evidence of those deletions?" Jalil nodded. His attorney passed up the USB drive with the archived files, complaints, deletions, email chains. Its label was innocuous. "Archived cases, black students, Harwick." He said quietly, "The system erased others like me. I'm here so they cannot erase me too." A whisper traveled among the audience. "Wow." A woman reporter pressed her digital recorder against the edge of the aisle. A camera lens angled toward him. He didn't blink. Then came the unexpected twist. On cross, the defense called a surprise witness, a young white student from Jallo's calculus class. He testified that he had once asked Jallo to help on a group assignment. He said Jallo had responded with impatience, raised his voice, made others uncomfortable. He concluded, "His ambition intimidated me, and I wasn't alone in feeling that." Jalil's father recognized the name. It was the same student who had later submitted Jalil's work as his own. The courtroom shifted again. The skew of power cracked open. When the student stepped down, the defense counsel tried to glide over the transcript of the group chat that had been leaked. Dr. Tomlin's words. "He's an uppity threat." The judge allowed it as evidence. In his closing statement, Jalil leaned forward. "I didn't come here to rewrite history. I came to ask for access. For what was promised, an equal chance." He looked around the courtroom. His parents, the legal team, the students in the gallery, even the stone-faced administrators. "If I win," he said quietly, "it's not for me alone. It's for every student, whoever sat front row and still felt invisible." He stood back. The judge took a deep breath. The silence that followed was vast. Then, almost without warning, the judge's tone cracked. "In light of the evidence presented, especially the documentation showing deletion of student work and targeted academic audits, I hereby grant an emergency injunction against Harwick University's disciplinary proceedings regarding Mr. Carter." Gasps. Cameras clicked. Counsel gasped. The gallery stirred. But the judge then, in a small and quiet addendum, something the transcripts would include later, leaned toward the bailiff and said, "Ensure his safety. Someone in that system wants him gone."
The accused administrators drew in their breath.
Outside the courtroom, reporters jostled for position. Live feeds flashed. Judge issues injunction in Harwick case. Student genius forces university hand. But inside, Jalil felt only exhaustion and relief. He looked at his mother, tears streaming. He looked at his father, mouth open. He looked at the judge, strong, unwavering, and then at his own notebook lying on the table. He touched the cover. It had started with chalk and doubt. Now it ended with truth. The world watched. The judge orders an emergency injunction. But it's what she says off record that stuns the nation. The day the legal verdict came through, dawn broke over the campus like an explosion of light. Jalil Carter waited outside the auditorium, surrounded by news vans, camera crews, and his parents. When the judge's order was read aloud, clear record, university apology, injunction against further disciplinary action, he felt a shift inside him, subtle but seismic. It wasn't just victory. It was vindication. Inside the press conference hall, the university president stood at a podium. Behind him, banners fluttered with the school's crest. He cleared his throat. "Harwick University acknowledges and regrets the pain Mr. Carter has endured. We apologize for failure of process, loss of trust, and the harm caused to a deserving student. The words were public, broadcast, recorded, a first for many of the voices Jalil had faced. He watched quietly. The apology was necessary, but it wasn't why he fought. His mother's tears were the only disturbance in the room's sterile ambiance. His father's steady nod said what his voice never could. Jalil stepped to the mic. He didn't claim triumph. He didn't ask for pity. I came here to learn, he said softly, and to give what I learned back. Because genius isn't rare, it's overlooked. Cameras caught every second. The world watched. And in that moment, something changed. After the verdict, there was no grand return to the classroom. No triumphant sit-down in the lecture hall at Harwick University. Instead, Jalil packed a duffel bag and collected his few belongings. He walked through the quad one last time. The building doors that once rejected him now stood idle, unassuming. The billboard that once promoted Student of the Month still displayed dated name. He felt it, but didn't stop. The campus felt smaller now. Not because he was leaving, it was their loss. He exited through the front gates. A photographer captured the moment. He didn't smile. He didn't wave. He simply walked. In his pocket was the USB drive from Andre Kellum, the printouts of erased students, the stories of those whose names never made banners or resumes. He carried them quietly. When a reporter asked, "Are you returning to finish your degree?" he nodded slowly. "No." Murmurs followed. He paused. "I hold an honorary fellowship now, but I've chosen to build differently." Some nodded in respect. Others looked puzzled. He knew what he was doing. He just didn't yet. Weeks later, he announced the launch of the Andre Kellum Initiative, a national math bootcamp for underserved Black students. The name itself carried weight. Not just his story, but theirs. The announcement video featured archival footage of chalkboards, classrooms, empty seats of erased students, and the faces of hopeful children. Jalil spoke to the camera. "This is for the ones who were told they walked in the wrong class. The ones whose work went missing. The ones who kept solving anyway." He walked across a sprawling hall full of whiteboard walls. On one board, the equation he'd solved in 60 seconds sat written in his handwriting. On another board, the name Andre Kellum was inscribed beneath a simple subtitle, "In Memoriam, Erased Student, Founded for Future Minds." The reaction was immediate. Donations poured in. Teachers reached out. Children applied. Underprivileged schools across the country asked for partnerships. The boot camp's first cohort was small, 40 students, but the gravity was massive. Each child had a test prep bundle, personalized mentorship, laptop access, and a scholarship promise. He visited a classroom in Chicago. He saw a boy, 10 years old, notebook open, hand raised. The same look Jalil once had. Focus, expectation, hope. He leaned closer and whispered, "You're in the right room." That moment felt like completion, not for his story, but for theirs. Amid the surge of goodwill, Hollywood made the call. A production company optioned his story for a limited series adaptation. Producers, writers, meetings, storyboards. He watched actors play rehearsals of his life. The classroom, the board, the erasures, the courtroom. He didn't participate beyond consultation. He chose to keep that story intact, unfictionalized. When the first script arrived, he read it. He set it down. Then he picked up his notebook and solved a complex little problem. Pure arithmetic, just for himself. In interviews, he declined to speak about the production. He said simply, "The screen can show me. I'll show the world quiet rooms full of blackboards." The publicity came anyway. Headlines: "Math Genius Turns Hero." From classroom to courtroom to Hollywood. Some thrilled, some skeptical. Still, at night he paused. Because recognition was new. But dignity, true dignity, was earned in the hours no one saw. The days came where he taught rather than learned. Led seminars rather than sat in rows. The boot camp was vigorous. 8-hour sessions, guest instructors, mentors, but also rooms where students were asked, "What question do you want to ask?" Not "What answer do you know?" One afternoon, he stood in front of the cohort and asked them to write a paragraph. "Why do you solve math?" Hands raised. A shy girl said, "Because my mother said I couldn't." A boy said, "Because I saw someone erase my friend's paper and nothing was ever said." Another said, "Because I believe my name belongs in a book someone forgot to write." Jalil smiled. "Good. Because math isn't just about finding answers, he said. It's about asking the questions that weren't asked before. Their notebooks filled with curiosity. Not compliance. But winning didn't mean peace. The boot camp drained him. His inbox lighted up with demands. Schools wanted speakers. Sponsors wanted logos. Activists wanted platforms. The production company wanted consults. His former professors wanted reconciliation dinners. Some students still wanted help. He prioritized. He filtered. He defended his time. Late nights became standard again. He'd sit in a quiet office, headphones on, headphones off, black coffee, stacks of applicant files. He had started the boot camp to repair damage, not to trade freedom for frenzy, but repair still cost him. He nearly missed a call from his mother. She wanted to attend a boot camp gala. He told her he'd fly to Chicago. He missed the flight. He called from his apartment. He heard her disappointment in the static. He promised next time. Then came an unexpected moment. A letter in his personal mail. No university crest, just plain paper. Congratulations, Mr. Carter. Your journey is complete. Please inquire within. It directed him to a hidden page on the university's website, locked behind a password. When he logged in, he found archived pages from his freshman year, old syllabi, student evaluations, a scanned note, Carter, potential disruption. One file. 2015 orientation photos. In the background, a young black student, him younger, hopeful, standing in front row. On the side, a faculty member scribbling on a notepad. The note, watch closely. He called Marcia. She listened. She said, they kept your record. They knew you'd get here. It dawned on him. The machine didn't fail by accident. It built him up, then attempted to break him, then tried to buy him, then dismissed him, then erased him. Now it archived him. He felt no anger, just clarity. At the largest boot camp graduation ceremony yet, Jalil stood on stage before hundreds of students and families. The auditorium lights were white and sharp. The sound system echoed. He looked out at the sea of faces, some excited, some nervous, a few tearful. He found the boy from Chicago, the one who'd raised his hand. He waved. The boy smiled shyly. Jalil started his speech. When I walked into that classroom for the first time at Harwick University, I had one hope, that the chalkboard would belong to me, that my voice would belong to me. I wasn't there to prove anything to others. I was proving it to myself. Cheers rose. He continued. Today the board still belongs to me, but now it belongs to you too. In his pocket he felt a USB drive, still intact, evidence not of his victory, but of the system's pattern. He paused, took a breath. Redemption doesn't come easy. Not through fame, not through money, not even through apology. It comes when you stop being erased, when you insist on being seen, when you solve the problem, then offer the board to someone else. The auditorium rose in standing ovation, but Jalil didn't stand. He stayed at the podium. He let them stand for the moment. Then he nodded and left the stage. Weeks later, in a fifth-grade classroom in Oakland, the final scene of the story was unfolding. The walls were littered with posters. Math is for everyone. Your mind can move mountains. A row of desks faced the whiteboard. Kids squirmed with anticipation. Their teacher introduced him. Class, this is Mr. Carter. He knows a thing or two about solving problems. The room quieted. Jalil walked in. No cameras, no live stream, no press, just 50 children and a notebook in his hand. He didn't announce himself. He simply pulled out a marker. He began writing symbols, less complex than his university days, but dense enough to spark curiosity. A boy in the front row looked up. Black, eyes bright, notebook open, hand raised. Jalil paused mid-stroke. He looked directly at the boy. You got this, Jalil said softly. The boy nodded, took a breath, and wrote. The chalk scraped the board. He didn't know it yet, but he'd been seen. He'd been believed. And then Jalil stepped back. The chalkboard filled. The boy's name appeared at the top of the page. It read, Future Mathematician, owned the room. The camera wasn't rolling. There was no cheering, no headline. Just two minds connected in possibility. In that stillness, Jalil realized that redemption wasn't an ending. It was the start of redefinition. His story had been about him. Now it was about them. He zipped his notebook shut. He turned and walked out of the classroom. The door clicked softly behind him. In the hallway, the future waited. In the final shot, Jalil walks into a 5th grade classroom. The black boy in the front row looks up. Notebook open. Red. They tried to erase him for being brilliant while black, but he turned their silence into legacy. If you've ever felt overlooked, doubted, or dismissed for who you are, his fight was for you too. Type yes if you believe genius has no color. Subscribe if this story broke your heart and opened your eyes.